Hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Tracy Lamourie with me from Hamilton, Canada. Thank you for coming today, Tracy.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes. So Tracy and I don't know each other in person, so I'm going to let her lead the way here. So Tracy, if you can just go ahead. Okay, what I do know about you is that you have been working from home for 25 years. And I think that's something that you can really lead with. So if you don't mind, just kind of like chunking through that journey a little bit and like
Absolutely.
if you can go way back and just talk about how you got started and then
Yeah.
how that has transitioned. I'm just going to let you take it away.
For sure. And I've been working from home since way before, when everyone wanted to work from home, but it was like a dream that people would, send away for $50 for one of those little things. Work from home, some companies that will let you stuff envelopes or whatever it was. But I really lucked into it. I was just doing in those days much different from now. Let me just quickly say, to frame it all, we're going to take you from, my early days as a, telemarketer doing contract work, literally telemarketer. And then how for one company that I kind of lucked into the work from home life. And then I fell in love with it and was like, I don't know how I could go back to call centers, etc. And then I kind of sold myself, to people who were looking for telemarketing, but hadn't thought about working from home. So I'll give some tips there about how I convinced people who weren't looking for work from home people back in the 90s when it was not a thing to let me work from home. And then from there, I segued that because at the same time I was an activist doing other stuff at home. And I kept doing the telemarketing from home so I could control my time and do the other stuff that mattered, right? And then anyway, now all that stuff led to what I'm doing now, which is completely different from what I started from. For the last decade, I've been a publicist, and now I'm an international award-winning global publicist, including. So I'm either like in the basement office working from home. Now it's COVID, so I'm here all the time. But even pre-COVID, 80% of the time, basement office, working from home, can't get me away from the house. 20% of the time, international travel and VIP parties. A really nice balance, right? But anyway, back in the day when I started, that wasn't the case. But it's part of the trajectory of where how I ended up where I did. That I was at home and not in an office working a 9 to 5, right? So.
Wow. So let's go way
Let's go way back with that. Yeah, with that intro. Okay, so back in the day, I was working in call centers doing market research and telemarketing, and we ended up unionizing one of the call centers, just me, my husband, and like one of the other people there, because, call centers can be really call center-y. And, nobody got the right hours, and it was all kinds of messed up. And, so we ended up calling in the union, which didn't exist in call centers, but we called in steel workers, blah, 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 and got the first call center in North America unionized. Funny thing is, literally when that happened, I had no intention of doing that and then literally leaving, but that's probably what it looked like to them, because as soon as that happened, I lucked into like literally the week that had happened, I applied for another job just because it was better paying, and it was saying you could work from home, and I was like, what? This can't be right, but it looked legit. And what had happened was a small publishing company, and I can't even remember their name at the time, but they ended up selling and becoming whole, being merged into like a giant corporation and everything. But anyway, at first it was this guy who owned it, like a gentleman who owned it, and he'd had one of his friends working from her house calling their repeat customers. And it worked really well for them. They thought, oh, gee, that's neat. We don't have to have overhead, the thing people are learning now. This is in 1994. And they were like, oh, look, we don't have to have the overhead. I can get, I don't have to pay a manager. I can just hire somebody else like my friend here who's a self-starter who can just do like my friend at the end of the week, tell us their results. Smooth. I lucked into that job. And I just fell in love with the whole working from home. Back then, I wasn't a mom. I was just 26 years old. I had nothing keeping me from going into an office. But the fact that I was able to do that made me able to work on my other passions, which at the time was activism and a radio show we had back in the early days and stuff like that. I was able to do things. I worked hard. I worked more than 8 hours a day, but I was able to fit it into, my own time. If I needed to stop for an hour, I'd stop for an hour and work an hour earlier, an hour later, work through lunch, So a lot of freedom, even though it was contract stuff.
So let me just recap. So at the very beginning, like when you finished your schooling, you started just working in like an office building with the telemarketing market
Customer
research.
service first, and then telesales market research.
And then you found a work from home position that looked more legitimate than you had seen before. And
Yeah, and this looked like it's seeming like a real company. Like, odd, like, let's go have an interview. It's a real office. And sure enough, they were like, yep, we're just hiring one or two people to do what my friend, whoever was doing for us until she retired or stopped doing it. They wanted to keep that up. And that worked really well. So at first it was just that one company. So they called it contract, but I was pretty much pretty much an employee looking back on it.
Okay.
They were my only client. I didn't think of them as a client. They gave me the work to do. I did the work. I gave it to them. They were my only income, right?
And then you mentioned something else. You said something about you were helping create that union, but that you said American. So you're in Canada, but you were working for an American call center. Is that right?
No, the call center, I think that was just Canadian. Sorry, I might have misspoke, or might have been confusing one from another. But yeah, no, the call center was Canadian, but I was doing American advocacy work, for some justice work and stuff like that. So we'd always had but that wasn't paid work. That was, stuff I was doing when I wasn't getting paid, stuff I could take an hour off to do, right?
I wondered if your helping pull that union stuff together helped you feel prepared to do that social justice work. Was there a step?
I think it's funny because we had done that. My husband and I had done a radio show just before that, and I think it was all sort of around the same time. We were just really young activists, we'll save the day. We know we'll do this. And so I remember that the union thing was funny in the call center, just as an aside, because one of the managers said, to me, I've been hearing union since I started here. And I don't know where I got the confidence at 24 to be like, but you've never heard it from me, though. And she's like, and a week later, we had the vote, and it was 97%. Not only a crazy yes vote, the union themselves were like, because they had never had a vote that, high.
Wow.
And the company thought that they couldn't get it because we were just call center employees, and they didn't think we knew that they also had mall employees. And anyway, we ended up being strategic, which we use later in public relations. It's always, and even in just whatever you're doing. But as a freelancer, figure out, the only reason I'm in PR now, that you figure out that next step. Everything you do, take that confidence that you built and take it a little further. Because you know that expression, half of everything is just showing up. Honestly, it's true that half of everything, at least, is introducing yourself to the right people. And once you start introducing yourself to the right people, you have that other quotient about these days it's not what you know, who you know. It is what you know, but it is increasingly also who you know when you're looking at jobs these days. Because like they're saying, most jobs, something like 90% of jobs are no longer put out, for public applications.
Internal.
People have bigger circles now, because it's always been that people like to hire within their circles, but their circles used to be smaller. And now with social media, with LinkedIn, with whatever, everyone has a bigger circle. And so a lot of jobs are filled before we as public ever hear about them.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
But anyways, back to, that one job I was doing, and, that went really swimmingly for 2 years, to the point where I'm used to it. I'm not going back to no call center office, Even if it was a great job, I'd be like, oh, really? Getting up, getting on a bus for an hour, or driving for it, nah, I've seen a better way.
Yeah.
And so I was really, right? And plus the 30, the discount that the advantages on your taxes, all the different benefits to working from home. And, but I was still, just generally still entry level, right? Even though I worked for this one company for 2 years doing the same thing. But then I started selling myself as it. So I started looking for just telemarketing or customer service or market research or any kind of phone job, because at that point that was my comfort level, and that was one of the only, one of the things you could do easily. You had a phone line at a long distance. And I just started looking for ads. They were not thinking about working from home, because that was a really rare thing in those days. And I would just look for ads that were looking for telemarketers. Now, if they had a call center, they weren't going to do it. Obviously, they have a call center and a process. But I was looking for the small guy, like the janitorial guy who was looking for clients, or the small, the mom and pop that was looking for caller. And I mentioned the janitorial. One of my next client, I think, that's why I started thinking client, was he had a small janitorial office company. And he was old school. Now I laugh. That's how I started my business career. But literally cold calling from home. He wasn't looking for anybody to do it from home. He had a little office. But I pitched him on how good I was. Because here I'm passionate. I'll do this. I'll do that. Just try it out. Said all the right words. And he agreed to try me out for a few days. And then I made sure to get great results. And why not continue? Then he started to see the benefit. That went on for years too. In fact, right through, the time I had that I got pregnant. And so I didn't have to quit my job when I got pregnant. I just kept on working and kept on working. I was pregnant up to here, and I'm working when I feel like it, not working when I don't feel like it. And then when I had the baby, obviously, the first few weeks, it was like, okay, I thought I could keep that up, but, not so much.
Yeah.
The timing was never right in the first couple of weeks, right? But very quickly, I was able to pick it up again. And I had a son, a little baby kicking around, and he would sit there with me while I was working. And, I would just time it like, oh, it looks like he might be tired. He might cry. I better get off the phone quick, because you didn't want anyone to think you were working from home in those days.
Yeah.
Now it's more accepted. Back then, you had to sound pro all the time like you're in the office, right?
Were you on the phone most of the time?
Most of the time, yeah. It was almost like, telemarketing essentially. It was mostly 30 calls a day or an hour.
Yeah.
Just repeated phone calls, And for a long time.
It sounds like you mentioned that your husband has kind of been on this journey with you. Can you talk about that too? How has his path followed or been the same or different
Right.
from yours?
So in the early days, when we first got married, we both he had a radio show, like a college radio show, and I went on that. That was our activism work that wasn't paid.
Okay.
So we were always doing advocacy work together. That job where we started the union, that was a part-time job. We both, it was my full-time job. And then he was on the evening shift. He took a second job there as a part-time job.
Okay.
He was off doing like entry-level finance stuff in another, different thing. And, but that was his part-time job. So when we were deciding to unionize it, he was, right there with me, active as Dave, the way we've done the radio show. So that's how that happened. But then he went off. He was more off, and he was mostly in the office until 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then 2 years ago, in my business, which is now international award-winning PR firm, got to the point where I need to hire people. And also I need a back end, and I need someone to do the finance because I don't know how to do it. I literally had to kind of get him away from that. So, I have to hire a stranger, or you're going to have to quit your job. And actually, because my thing that I built is not little anymore. It's not just me anymore. I need to, so then he came, and now he works from home with me. But for most of the time, he was out working in the office.
Okay. How has the adjustment been for him? Can you speak for him?
Yeah, I think he likes it a lot, cause there's always frustration with office jobs, when it wasn't our company, right? So even when he had, great positions of responsibility nationwide, there's still processes and procedures and sometimes that don't make any sense or whatever that, you would like to, when you're a strategic person and a thinking person and a man, that kind of minded person, it's frustrating to work in things you can't change that are ineffective. So those kind of things always annoyed him. And, when now we're able to instigate our own processes and things like that. So, and I've got an office down here, which is the biggest office. I chose it first. It's in the basement. Right now you don't see, but there's a fireplace behind me. We're doing renovations. So there's a nice office here. I could do a little fireside chat. I picked the biggest room with and then he's got an office upstairs, which is in more of our living space, but it's a smaller, like a bedroom that he uses as an office, second bedroom. So we got different spaces in terms of, he's probably 15 feet away, but it's up there and over there.
Yeah.
And when I need to do a podcast, when I need to go and do quiet writing, I also have a second workspace I set up in the living room. So if I need to be near the door to hear a courier, or my daughter's visiting and, I want to talk while I work, then I can sit in the living room. But if I need to come down and get serious,
right.
And office, I have that space.
I feel that it's been really helpful for me to have. I don't really have a second workspace right now, but just having other places. My husband has a work desk in our bedroom that sometimes I'll kind of take over when when he's gone. He only has to go on site like every 4 to 8 weeks. It just depends on who's on call kind of thing.
So you guys both work at home too?
This year, yeah. I've been working from home for 13 years now. This will be my 13th year. And he has been just 1 year and I guess 13 months now. And they're talking about possibly giving the option of having a more permanent remote work option for some people. And they're going to be taking surveys and thinking about what that might look like. Even if it's like a 80% or a 50% type thing, he would be on board. He would say, even if I could go to the office 1 day a week, that would be fantastic. As long as everyone else was there so that they could collaborate and actually do the team building things that they need to do, as far as
on those days. Yeah.
But if he could do, 80% at home, he would jump on that.
And it's funny because now, obviously, everybody's doing it, right? Welcome. But it's funny because all this time, it's funny because people have always been like, "Oh, you're so lucky you work from home," and I am because I have. I mean, to me, it's perfect. But I always have said, it's not perfect for everybody. Not everybody can do it. Number one, a lot of people really miss the social. Yeah. Me, I have enough social. If I want social, I can keep my Facebook open in the corner. If I want to, I don't need that social of people beside me. I need to focus on the work and get it done. It already feels like there's not enough time in the day, So I don't need to go, but some people need that space. That's a real big, important emotional uplift for them to get out of the house, go there, meet, some people are into that, but not me. But most people who always wanted to work from home, I was also saying, it's also a skill. And you have to be careful because you have to realize you're at home and you're working and not get distracted, not allow other people. In the old days, like now there's more understanding of it. But again, even 10 years ago, when I would say I was working from home, and that was when I was scheduled, like I had to log in. Yep. I wasn't owning a company. Yep. I had to log in and report hours and, and people just knock at the door. Oh, hi. Oh, they think I'm home. And I was like, no, you have to, and what are you doing? It's 1:00 on a Friday. I'm working,
Yep.
Oh, every time, they didn't really think that you're actually working. He's like, no, this is actual work.
I think that there's a misconception that, all work from home is the same. And like you're describing, some people are literally like on the clock. They had to punch in and punch out and take a break, a scheduled break even. And, report to their supervisor and, they're having their productivity monitored and how many calls and, everything, very monitored. And other people.
That's how it was when I started.
Like other people have way more flexibility and time and freedom as far as like where they can work. When I was working for Mayo Clinic, I had to be plugged in to my router with the Ethernet. I didn't get to take a laptop, anywhere. I couldn't work from the coffee shop like so many people think that you can. So there's definitely, a very wide variety of jobs from working from home. And it sounds like you've kind of run the full gamut now.
Well, not anymore. I mean, now I'm living the entrepreneur life, and I'm like for the last few years, I've been that high-powered executive. My calendar is hugely scheduled. Yeah. So now it's funny, right? It's funny because now I'm back to the hugely scheduled.
Oh,
because now that I think about it, at a totally different way. Oh my God! Because at the beginning it was freelance. I'm like, my boss is breathing down my neck. Do you have 20 calls an hour? Why don't you have 20 calls an hour? What are the result of each of those calls? Where you had to have the report. You had to, and then I had some when I started doing some freelance stuff. I was doing what was it called? Elance then. I think it's called Upwork now.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to log in, hours, right? Same as that, like log in time. Tick, 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 the clock's ticking. You go to the bathroom, you log out. There was all that really scheduled. And then I got to a point where I just started taking on clients from LinkedIn or people that knew my work and who'd meet me. I charged them a monthly rate. So now I'm not on the hour at all because they're not even paying an hourly. So I'm not having to keep a record of each hourly. All they care about now is results. At the beginning of the month, I said, I'm going to get you these results. And this is what you're going to pay me for those results. And they're like, sounds great. So as long as I get those results, nobody's questioning, right? They don't care if I get 2 hours or 500 hours as long as the agreed upon rates are,
Would you say that's more like a salaried situation? Contract?
Yeah, no, I was never on a salary though. And it was always very casual, but it was more like I instigated that. And I think it's a good model for freelancers because then it's up to the hour, basically how good you are, how quick you are, how much, like say you're a writer and you happen to write, you got it all up here, you know your stuff, you can write an 800-word essay in 20 minutes. Is that of less value? Should you be paid only for 20 minutes than the person who spent an hour and a half researching because they don't have no idea about the topic and you know what I'm saying? So
you're paying for expertise.
You're paying for the thing. So I started saying once my reputation started to be where they would, actually not even my reputation. Once I started, it was both at the same time. Once I started getting away from the headspace of asking someone for a job and started thinking about offering a service, I started saying, hey, you know what? You should pay me this. And for that, you're going to get this, and this. You could even do that for telemarketing. You could be, you know what? Why don't we talk about this instead? I'll get you how many, whatever results for whatever. And then you know yourself whether you're going to hugely undercut yourself doing that or whether you're going to actually make a lot of money. Like with now at the point where I am, international award-winning publicist, where I have literally relationships with all kinds of editors, with all whatever, things you can't buy your way into. But things, I don't take somebody on as client unless I have an idea. Oh yeah, I know what I could do with them. I know I could write an article with them here that my editor over there will take because they do this. I could do this, I could do that. So before I even take their money, I know 3 things I can do for them. Those 3 things may take me an hour to start the process, and then maybe another hour and a half each as I connect them with the reporter and blah, blah, blah. So then for 3 hours work, they've got 6 pieces of media. None of their business how many hours that took, because that result is worth way more than they paid. You know, so I started, but you could use that with any model. Like as soon as you have the confidence in yourself as a service provider and get away from that hourly, you know, it's a really good way to think about it, because also then it gives your client the confidence because they know you're not going to be running over all kinds of time. Everyone's results based. In the end of the day, everyone's results based when they're doing their analysis and their ROI and all that. So if you tell them that, you know, if you ask them $500 an hour or $20 an hour, but there's no context to that, like, what are you doing for that? So It doesn't really matter. Wipe that off the table and say, like, listen, what is it that you need? I'll tell you what you tell me what you need. I'll tell you what I could do it for. And then hopefully you're not undercutting yourself in the first month or so. You might be like, oh my God, that was way more than I thought, or, you know, way more work than I expected.
My experience with Upwork was short. I did a few jobs, ghostwriting jobs. And what happened with that was you basically have 2 different, like, I actually was on Upwork as not only a freelancer, but also as someone who would hire. And you can see it from both directions. But you can either agree to do a job for hourly rate, or you can agree to do a job now for a set rate. And I agreed to do a few, like I think I was writing an ebook. And it, you know, when you start to think about, and some people charge per word, you know, like I'm charging, you know, whatever. So, you know, 6 cents a word or 9 cents a word or something like that. Where I found myself, you know, because I was new to it, I was taking longer than I would have wanted, and I found myself getting paid only like 3 cents a word for my first job, but that was a learning experience. It was kind of like my training and getting my feet wet. So I can see that being something that as you grow into it, that you can get faster and faster, and that set rate.
And you have to really
nice
start
way.
to know. Like it worked. I mean, like I said, I wasn't doing that model when I was doing, you know, well, I did a little bit on Upwork, you know, like when you mentioned that it was like that. But in terms of, I didn't really get the confidence to be like, no, you know what, this is what I charge and this is what I'm going to do for you. Do you want it? Until I, you know, started like getting the kind of media that I'm getting from my work and all that. But again, I didn't do that. That all happened because I'm a publicist. So I know how to put myself out there. Right? So if I have a success, I know how to, unlike most entrepreneurs, you have a success, you just put it on your wall, you don't know how to advance it. I know how to incorporate that in your bio and tell 2 people and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden the right person hears and you're up for an award, and, you know, that's how what it takes to amplify your voice. But so in my model, it was easier to do that. But honestly, if you think about that as a freelancer, right, that's an important thing. And also just because I found pricing was one of the biggest challenges in building my business, because we're all afraid to lose that client.
Yeah. You've got 20 years of, you know, connections that you're bringing to the table. And, you know, you could pull together something in maybe a few hours or a few days that would take the next person 2 weeks to do, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of all the work done before, right? So.
Yes. It all builds on itself. Let's change gears a tiny bit. I want to go back to when you talked about your husband moving home, working from home, and he's got the upstairs office. How did that discussion go for you guys? How did you decide who was going to be in the basement and who was going to take the smaller office? And did you want to work separate from each other?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because we used to have, and I guess we weren't working back in the day when we used to have a shared office back about like a decade ago, when I was still working from home. I was working from home in those days. I was working for a ISO company in that time, doing telemarketing calls to their clients, or, you know, like not cold calls, but calling, you need to update or whatever. And so that was my job at home. And then right next to me was my husband had a day job, like, so he was off in the day, but right next to me, like literally 2 feet from me was his computer. And so when he'd come home in the evening, he'd be sitting there. I was only working in the day in those times because it was day calling. So I'd be working in the day, but then at night we'd both be sitting there doing our advocacy work, our unpaid advocacy work together within a foot of each other for like a couple of years. And that was always...
Did you like that?
That always went fine. Yeah, I don't remember any issues with that or anything. And we had a giant big office in those days. And then, how did it happen here? Here, I think... Yeah, here when our daughter had moved back home, she's 28 now, and she'd been, moved out and then went to school and back for different reasons, and at one point she had moved back home, and we had tenants down here, and so we'd only had one office at that point, and it was up in that room. And I think we both sort of worked out of it, but not at the same time because he was mostly not at home working in those days, right?
Right.
But at night he'd be in there doing whatever, and I'd either be there with him or I'd be in the other room on the computer in the living room because I would be talking with the kids more, And then once when we had tenants down here, so when my daughter moved back in, she took that room. And then we just had the living room, and nobody really had an office for a little bit, right? And then, I guess it didn't last very long because very quickly after that, at that point we had like 3 tenants, different rooms in the basement. Because we first moved in, that's how it was, this place, and we just didn't disrupt anybody. And as people left, we were just like, goodbye. And so as one person left this room, we were like, oh, good. And my husband suggested you should use that for your office, and because I'm the head of the company, it's my company, I started the company. I have all the files. I do most of the podcasts. So it was never a competitive thing. It was always just, and by then he had that room back there so we could keep it, whatever. And I moved all my stuff here specific to the company. So I moved all, other, like only company stuff, not our advocacy work, not our other stuff, only business stuff that I want to be around me here that's specifically to do with this endeavor and my clients, not our other TV stuff or, you know what I mean? So yeah, so we moved everything down here and I'm in the middle of, revamping other rooms. So right now there usually is a bit of a storage area behind me. But normally this is like got all the client stuff on the walls and all the projects, and I can have a chair. Someone can, in non-COVID days, somebody can actually come in and look at what I'm doing and, do a live stream with me and that kind of thing.
You really got my curiosity up when you said that there was a time when there was no office. Do you remember what you did?
I'm trying to remember how that worked. I guess I definitely wasn't doing podcasts in those days because that would be so problematic. Hard. But I do remember going out. I guess I probably was in the summer, or when it was nice because I'm trying to remember how that worked. And I'm thinking the only times it was probably problematic because most of it would be computer work, right? So whatever. Okay. It's not. But when I needed to do phone calls, so that would be. Thank God I wasn't doing 3 podcasts a day, but just phone calls, conference calls. I remember doing a bunch of them outside now that I think of it. Sitting outside at that, which I don't do now, like on the back deck. It's a nice little table and chairs and sitting out front and having business calls out there. Right. So I probably went out there to make sure that my son didn't come running in going, Mom! Mom!
Sounds like you've been in this home for a few years now. Has it been
5 years now, yeah.
5
years this place, yeah. Yeah. And before that 5, we've been in, since I started this business, we've lived in 3 homes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before that we were more permanent, but we ended up having a bigger place. Then we moved to a place that we knew was going to be temporary while we were figuring out, were we going to stay in Toronto or are we going to buy again, what we're going to do. And then Hamilton ended up coming up in the middle of that. So we ended up coming to Hamilton, whole new thing. It's only 45 minutes west of Toronto, but...
I looked up a little bit before we got on this call. I found a little video. It was like, I don't even know. I think I just Googled it. Hamilton, Canada. Because I ironically am from Minnesota. Like, we border Canada. I'm from
you're not far. Yeah.
I'm not, but it's a little embarrassing. I've never been to Canada in my life. I've been to Europe.
Yeah, well, next time.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what, though? It's true. Like, I was saying the same thing now through COVID. I'm like, oh, well, you know what? If they don't open the borders up pretty soon, and I don't mind even when they're open, I just don't want to deal with all this testing, a million things and having being stuck somewhere. And it just seems like a nightmare right now more than fun, right? But once all that's over. So I'm thinking, while that's over, maybe I'll actually see Canada, because it's funny, because when I was in... Los Angeles, I was like, oh my God, look at the mountain. Now I see why they say it's awesome. It actually looks awesome. I was in Santa Monica looking at the mountain overlooking. And I'm like, I've never seen the mountain. People are like, You're from Canada and you've never seen mountains? I'm like, I'm from Ontario. It's the way the opposite side. It's literally as expensive to fly from Ontario to British Columbia as it is to fly to Europe. So we are, like I said, I've been to Europe, I've been to all over, but I haven't seen the East Coast, like Newfoundland, whatever. It looks like they got some neat going on there. Like, it looks like Ireland or something. Never seen it. And then they got and do you know what I just learned about Canada that I didn't even know? There is a place that's literally right off the coast of Newfoundland. So I shouldn't even say it's Canada, because this is apparently not Canada. There's an island called Saint whatever that is actually a French, like France, owned by France territory, that uses the euro, where they have a member of parliament in the European Parliament. And I had never heard of it. Apparently it's like 20 kilometers from Newfoundland. It's not even a thing what? So now I really want to go. It's only small. It's like a little island. And I don't know how that happened, but Google it. There's Google like French territory. It's Saint something and it's just crazy. So now I'm like, whoa, I really want to check that out.
I feel like there's some of that happening down in the Caribbean as well. Because, there's different territories and things like that. And
yeah,
there's a lot to learn about
in America. Or like Guam, yeah, like I just did a podcast in Guam, and I was Googling going, where is that? And it was saying it's the Americas. But I'm like, wait, I thought it was the South Pacific, and I'm like, it is. So it's like that. It's like
Samoa.
There's these weird little places that are like, not the places aren't weird, but I mean there's these little places that are like separated from whatever is their colonizer or whatever it is.
Their mainland, for sure,
Yeah, anyway, strange, eh? But yeah, so don't feel bad. There's all kinds I haven't been all over America yet either. But we do have some pretty neat stuff, April, so you should come up here one day.
I'm a little bit curious about the weather in Hamilton because I'm from southeastern Minnesota, and I know that Canada kind of dips down, by Toronto and everything, down by Michigan and everything. So are your winters like, do you have like lake effect where you have...
Yeah, Hamilton is pretty much like, it's pretty close to Toronto, when Toronto is, I don't, they related to Chicago, but less windy. I mean, we're just northeast, it's not like the Arctic, but it's pretty cold sometimes. Lately, I don't know what's going on because we had snow in April, which is not okay.
My parents had snow today as well.
What is going on?
It's normal.
It needs to stop. It's not right.
That's why I moved away. I'm actually in Arizona now. I'm
nice.
I'm Minnesotan, born and raised. For 29 years, I lasted, and then I was like, I'm out of here.
I was at the Grand Canyon last year.
Oh yeah, it's so different. It's like, I feel like I'm on another planet living here.
Even just the West. Yeah, the whole West was neat. And do you know, I'd never seen, only in movies, because we were driving from Vegas, not driving, we were in like a tour thingy, right? Driving from Vegas to the Grand Canyon. Yep. And so there's hours of desert. Mm-hmm. And even just like the kind of the plants and like the mountain, and the hills. And then all of a sudden there's some dark hills that were like, what is going on? Like, it just looks totally different, And then you're like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I've seen this in like movies about the West, it's a totally different place. And then you get to the Grand Canyon and you're literally like your eyes can't process it. People haven't been there. Nothing you've ever seen in pictures or movies about it. I don't care what movie or film or how, you're just like, oh, that's nice. But when you actually see it, your brain is like I was sitting there staring at it for like however long, and I'm just like, it feels like you're looking at Mars. And you actually think, what did people think when they discovered this? And, they were walking along, la, 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 and they saw like this.
Yeah. Fantastic.
It's just like your eyes can't process what you're seeing because you're just not used to it. It looks otherworldly. It really does.
You were talking about the mountains, and the first time I ever saw mountains was actually in Belize. I was 14 years old, and I took a trip with the church group, and we went down to Belize, and I had never seen the ocean. I had never seen mountains, and it was like, and never been in the jungle. It was like all for one. But I think that's kind of how it is with traveling. Like, you just have never experienced the jungle until you've been in the jungle and you hear the sounds and you feel the moisture in the air, and it's just fantastic. But so actually,
now I want to do that. Right now.
Working from home,
the way you say that.
People have that digital nomad life, and I've never really fully experienced that. I have had the opportunity now to be able to work on the road a few times. But for so many years, I was literally tied to this desk. I was able to work from this desk or the one at, the headquarters company in Minnesota. I was working at Mayo Clinic, and they had like a drop-in desk that I could work in there. But now it's like, things are a little bit more free. Like, obviously not during the pandemic, but I'm thinking, I want to bring my kids to experience these different things. And I could still get a few, hours of working on the road sometimes. Now that we have a hotspot in the car, I can drive around and use the internet and do some stuff. So you said that you might want to try to see Canada. What would that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, because I got lots of plans for after the borders are open. Like, I've got Ghana waiting for me. I got all kinds of places to go. But for now, Canada. So I'm thinking I'm really interested in seeing BC because again, the mountains were so amazing when I saw them in LA, and I've never seen them in my own country. So yeah, I should probably go to the famous Rockies in British Columbia. And so I'd love to go out there just to BC, and also Vancouver, we have three major cities in Canada: Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. Yeah. I know Toronto very well. I know Montreal. But Vancouver I've never been, so I'd love to go and just, I'm a city girl, experience the city as well as the mountains.
Right.
And for sure. And also the East Coast, which is a totally different thing. That's like a whole different culture too, right?
Yeah.
They all, I don't want to do the accent, but the East Coast and East Coasters that I've met here, they are a different breed too. So kind and friendly and welcoming and best friendly and just literally a different breed. Like in that, there's a famous story about, I get this over 911 when a plane crashed or something, and they made a film or a movie about it and play since.
Yes.
But a whole bunch of East Coasters brought everybody in who play, hundreds of people got brought into people's homes. They would have 20, right? When the plane
was it called something like Away From Here or?
I think that was it. Yeah, something like
close.
that rings a bell.
I was supposed to go.
That was it.
They actually were performing whatever that. Oh my goodness, it's about Newfoundland, right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Newfoundland. Yeah.
And they were performing it here where I live in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. They were going to have the performances here in June last year. And one of my clients, I teach English in mainland China, is the majority of my clients are. One of those ladies just said, "You've got to see this show. It's so, so good." And I was like, I looked it up. I watched a whole bunch of previews and I got really excited. I was going to buy tickets, and then the pandemic, of course.
Yeah, of course. So you know what I'm talking about, though. So that's what the East Coast people are like. That's not a surprise because they're very like that, And then also they have, if you ever Google, I don't even know if it's Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, but if you Google the East Coast and by the water there, and it looks like a little fairy tale. It has little colored houses, all different colors, like little fishing. Yeah, it just really, I like places that don't look like everywhere else.
Yeah.
And it looks like going on the East Coast is like a whole different experience. They've got a lot, Irish influence too, and so it's a whole different experience there than the rest of Canada. So let's go east, west, and then maybe the border can open up. And my kid really wants to go to New York. He's never been to New York City, and he loves subways. So that's his big thing about New York. So my daughter wants to go to New York before she has a kid. So
that would be
she's
good.
pregnant right now, so she wants to go before she gets super pregnant. And yeah, we're counting, will the border open before she's like, I'm too pregnant to travel?
Right. When I talk with people who are not from here, especially my clients and in Asia, they always are interested in coming to see the big cities, New York and LA. And maybe Chicago. You mentioned the three big cities in Canada. We've got the three big cities here. And that's what people seem to want to see. And I'm like, there's so much more to see. I said, if you want to see those cities, plan some time and do a road trip and drive. Get in a bus or take a tour or rent a
right.
car.
I mean, last year, I even went to, in 2019, brought me to Columbus, Ohio, which was not on my bucket list.
Yeah.
It was not a place I ever thought, but certainly Columbus. We had such a good time in Columbus. There was such to see. We met all kinds of really cool people. The nightlife was really cool, actually. The people was super friendly. And we don't have to say Torontonians are unfriendly, but we have a reputation for being unfriendly in terms of big city people. Yeah. And I never think so, but until I go to other cities and I see that people are just even New York City, people from Toronto will be like, yeah, they're really friendly there. People are like, what? But New Yorkers are rude. No, but they're friendly, but they'll also tell you this, they talk to you. Uh-huh. Torontonians are like, what? You talking to me? Not sure why you're talking to me. Because it was so reserved. Not me. Not everybody. But we have that reputation of being more reserved, Whereas in other places, they just taught you this conversation start. But yeah, so I loved Columbus. I loved, all that stuff. But yeah, these are the freedom that you get from working from home, right? And honestly, as you develop, I would like to really impart people, though, because my journey went from that service provider, employee to starting to think of myself as a service provider to doing really well as a service provider. And then people started telling me, you really need to make this a business. And I was like, oh, well, whatever, because, I'm really good at what I do, but I didn't know anything about a business. And then I finally did a general partnership for 5 years until people started to tell me, you really need to up your game. Now, again, you're kicking way above your weight, general partnership in Canada, and you have international clients in LA, you're traveling, you're getting these awards. You need to incorporate to be on that different level, right? So then I got comfortable with that idea. But I'm still essentially me doing all the client work.
Right.
I'm now thinking about how do we make that jump to start, because I would love to create this life for other people and start becoming a job creator, because people need jobs. Number one, everyone's working from home, right? Yeah. And that's always the concept I had, is I would want people to do the same thing as me. But I've been nervous about how do I find those people that I trust.
Like training people or bringing more people into your team to do the work that you're doing so that you can be more of a leader?
So both, really, because my work has transitioned so much as my reputation has transitioned, that I'm doing so many podcasts and panels and speaking engagements. But now I'm starting to think that on the other, and not just on PR and media anymore, which I started by doing podcasts and panels on how to build up your brand, how to get in PR, how to get into media, how to build, get the media attention, which I still do a lot of. But then it started transitioning into people looking at my success and how I developed this, talking to me about business and entrepreneurship and genuine authenticity. And so all of a sudden, that's what I'm talking about now, which made me realize suddenly, hold on, I've just developed a second career. Even though I've been doing this all for free, these are just podcasts, because I was thinking about them as building my PR brand. What I've actually done now, if you Google my name, is there's 200 or whatever, 150, whatever it is now, and I've lost count, hours of me talking about all these things.
Wow. Which
means on the other side of things, when stages open up again for events and conferences and all that, just the way I can send any podcaster usually now, I send my resume to, because I have a wide audience. Anybody where your audience is an entrepreneur or whatever, I have a message for. So, and the more I do, they all build on each other. It's clear that I'm an expert. So sure, come on mine too, right? So the same way that podcasters are doing that now, when I start sending that out to the people booking those paid speaking engagements on stages, I could end up doing more work talking about what I do than actually doing the PR.
Okay.
In which case, I don't want to abandon all those contracts and all that work I've done building my brand.
Did you pass it off?
I'd like to have, I never thought about selling him. He's got my name on it. I would keep it and keep overseeing it and still do some client work, because there's always projects I'm going to get excited about. But I'd also love to train new people, have new people. And they don't have to be 5-year publicists. I didn't go to school for it. People with a passion for it, who are smart and trustworthy and strategic and, freelancers, right? People who are doing what I'm doing, what I started doing.
So you've mentioned a few times that you're doing a lot of podcasts in a week. I think at one point you mentioned that you've got 3 a day sometimes.
12 coming up next week.
Oh my goodness. Crazy. Now, are you doing these, are any of the podcasts your own, or are you just coming in as a guest with lots of other people?
Those are all guest appearances. So we're only now talking about developing one.
Okay. So
I need another thing.
You've had a business, or you've had a passive radio in the past. So you're comfortable on a microphone, on camera even.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just go with it.
Right. So we were talking,
and I think but that's part of what I teach people, though. Everybody should be, because everybody who's taking money for something, you're experts in your field. Just that same confidence you have to take the money from the client to do the good work you're going to do. Understand yourself as an expert too is part of what I talk about a lot. And then find those opportunities to speak as an expert, or to blog, or to guest on podcasts, and build your own reputation for thought leadership, as they say.
So you're saying that you're doing the podcast basically for free, you're as a guest, to build your own brand, but then you said, but it leads to paid speaking engagements, or does it also give you stages to sell from?
Yeah, absolutely. I just found it hugely effective. I was initially thinking of podcasts only as another media opportunity, because I'm a media girl. So TV, radio, newspaper, magazines, podcasts. It was literally just another thing to get your name out there, media. And then I started doing them when I started doing them, as opposed to my clients just doing them who are creatives or whatever, but doing them with a strong business-to-business service message, right? Not thinking about advertising, because I don't even do advertising. But I started seeing how powerful it was for marketing, especially in the age of COVID now, because of networking. I'm sure, good for marketing, but huge for networking, because every podcaster, or 90% of them, are building their own brand. That's part of why they're doing their podcast. So, if you're going in there with something that can help them build their business, which is what they're actively doing, and most of their listeners are doing, it's a different audience than just the radio and TV. So it's much more become a huge networking and marketing thing. So yeah, I was just thinking about it as, because I know entrepreneur, I'm in there on all the pod match services and everything, pitching my clients. And then I started to see all these entrepreneur ones. And I just know how few entrepreneurs have an understanding of this as opposed to marketing. Mm-hmm. They understand advertising and marketing, PR, building their brand with media is literally a blind spot. So I was like, I'm going to start talking about it, and it's really fun. And then what happened is podcasters started hiring me too. Like 6 podcasters have hired me. 2 podcasters have recommended me to other people. And then plus people have contacted me. One author literally contacted me from New York, and she said, "Oh, I heard you on a podcast you were on last December. I don't even know which one." And she said, "And when you said your vibe attracts your tribe," I said, "Yes." And I knew I had to call you. And then she contacted me on LinkedIn, and then she hired me. So yeah, I've seen real results that I wasn't even looking for. I was just thinking, and then it's only since then that I've realized I've done all these. I'm like realizing, whoa, now I can literally, now my resume for speaking on things that people pay big money for, like leadership, entrepreneurship, all those things. Like I'm speaking now, nobody can deny that my reputation for that is as big, as good as my reputation for PR and for the work that I was doing. Because now you can see I'm an engaging speaker. You can see the things I've spoken about. You can see all the recommendations or all the positive words podcasters have said and their listeners have said after hearing the segments. You submit that in a nice little package to the people choosing speakers. Then all of a sudden, instead of doing PR contracts for $3,000, $5,000 a month, I'm doing like my clients, charging $5,000 a month for a speaking engagement. $5,000 a day for a speaking engagement, then going home, and I don't even have to finish doing any more work. I'm done. I fly somewhere, talk for the day, over. And then I can just do the contracts that I really want to work on and let other people build their brands and have opportunities to be freelancers, to work at home, and to build, the same kind of life that we've been able to build. So get out of that race.
So I started this podcast without ever having had been a guest before. And I would recommend that anyone who wants to be a podcaster start guesting first. We met each other through the service, what is the service called? Matchmaker FM. Right? And I have had, I think I'm looking at a list of some of my guests. I think I've probably had 6 or 8 of my guests I've met through that. And it's kind of like a dating service for podcasters, but not dating, just trying to make connections and find people. I usually do a keyword search looking for people who work from home and come up. But a lot of times I can't even tell from the description. A lot of people like to hide that information, actually. And so I have to ask, do you actually do this from home? And I can't remember if you reached out to me or if I reached out to you first, but somehow we found each other through this connection.
Yeah, I think I reached out from you and said, I sent you my regular little bio. Then I said, I do this from home.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And so I was like, well, let's chat. So I think that getting to be a guest first is a really good idea. Podcasting has a little bit of a learning curve. What would you say? Let's talk about this for a minute. Since you do so much of it, do you have like podcast equipment, or what are you using?
Yeah, I don't really have. I just really have. Well, right now I'm using a gamer headset because I had originally bought another headset, which I thought was for like $40, which I thought wasn't working, but turns out I was probably just not working right. So I went and bought this one for like $60 or whatever, and it's a really good one.
It's got the glowing red sides and
it's like. Yeah, it's some gamer thing. But you know what? You see that I'm red. Everything's red with me.
Yes.
Red. I'm known for my red. And so really true confession, the headset was red and black. And I was like, oh, well, that's on brand.
That's, it's so funny that you said that. And I will make my own confession. Actually, red is literally my favorite color. And it's my other other color of my brand. I have right now teal and red. But my couch is red. I think I've owned 3 red cars. Like, I just am really drawn to red. Nice. So when I saw you with the red lipstick and the red everything, couch. I'm like, oh, she's a girl after my same style.
I love it. Love it. Yeah, that's all. And I mean, usually when it's not, like right now everything's closed, but normally I have the nails, all done with I can't do it myself properly, red with black tips. And, right now I have just red, but I usually have red with a black streak. Ooh. So yeah, my whole aesthetic is super bright red. You see, and even this, the red, you see me turning into red and black. My clients are like, and then I went out to meet one for lunch a little while ago, right before they did the latest lockdown. And she's like, you and your red, you're always... And the next day, she started messaging me because she's got a brand called Blue Skies Life. And so the next day, I know she went out and bought this really nice, like exactly to the color of her logo, fancy chair. Mm-hmm. And then she was in a little teal jacket, and I was like, "That's my girl." Now you got to do that's it. But it works, honestly. It does work. I hadn't even thought about it consciously at first. Mm-hmm. I just sort of, and I noticed pictures of myself now 3 years ago when I was like, I've had the red hair for 20 mm-hmm. years, but I guess 3 years ago I went like almost fully red and black. I started like getting rid of things in my closet that just don't resonate, literally. Yep. And now it looks funny to me when I see pictures from 3 years ago. Everything looks great. I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? What am I wearing? That's blue. It's strange. I was wearing blue in those days. So I was like, sometimes I'll joke around. I'll be posting. It's like signature color or obsession. We're not sure anymore.
Accurate. So does it help your brand, do you think? Does it help people recognize you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I'm in PR and media too. So like, even people see these now. I can't even buy these anymore. Can't find them. I'm really mad that I didn't buy 5. But as soon as I started wearing these, all kinds of people on my page were like, oh my God, that's you. And I gotta, wear that. And this artist I know started doing a picture of me that she said was, so yeah, I have all I'm just known for like red. And it's funny because I didn't even know at all, but if you Google the meaning of colors and stuff, it's hilarious for publicists because red is obviously power color, but it's also look at me, mm-hmm. attention getting because you're not shy, which again is perfect for PR. And then black, that streak of black is authority and gravitas as well. I mean, some people would say dark and macabre, but no. But also it's authoritative and gravitas, mm-hmm. which again is perfect for the publicist. So I'm like, look at me, but listen up because I'm telling you something. You know what I mean? It's like, and I didn't even know that, but it's the perfect. For my logo, it's kind of harsh. So I hate because I notice I see, and I love it because it's my red and black. Mm-hmm. But I hate that, a lot of fascists and stuff like that use red and black for that. And it always made me mad when I see that. I'm like, oh, because that's not right. I'm reclaiming it's bright red with the authoritative black. But I don't like when I see a lot of times that those colors used in, the incorrect connotation.
So I actually have red glasses.
Oh, look at that. Very cool.
I have 2 pairs of exactly the same pair of glasses, and mine. And I mentioned this. I think this is actually my blue blocker pair. So they kind of have that blue sheen, and cool. Then I've got the ones that don't have that. So, because I don't wear contacts very often, ever actually. So I figured out I might as well be consistent.
Yeah, I've never worn contacts. My eyes were always great. Yeah. It's only recently now I'm getting old and my eyes are... And so I was like, oh, glasses, really? And then I found these, and now I almost never take a picture without them. I'm like so into them
Part
now.
of your look.
They're literally like the style. My husband at first was like, oh my God, you're going to look like some 50s church lady. I was like, shut up, they're wonderful. And everybody online likes them, so he's come accustomed to it. I'm like, you're wrong.
So if you were to go down the road, you've got your headset. If you were to go on a vacation to, say, New York or to see the country of Canada, would you take your stuff with you, or would you schedule yourself a real vacation? Could you pause everything, or would you need to just take it on the road?
Oh, I take it on the road. I was in Montreal. Actually, I don't think I took my headset though, but maybe I should now that I see how important it is with when, usually Zoom or whatever, I just click off my phone. But, I do it from hotel rooms. Like I was in Montreal in November doing it with nice, and actually I thought we booked a hotel for New York for March thinking that we'd be able to go, but I knew when I booked it was probably going to be canceled. Like I was booking it in January going, maybe, and they even said they were going to give me a better room and all that. Oh, I pulled the PR thing and they were like, yeah, but I knew it was going to be, and of course it came up and I canceled, but I was picturing, I was booking all my podcasts, I would have, this beautiful background.
Do a lot of your podcasts use video?
The ones that I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems a lot of podcasts, I'd say 9 out of 10 of them are using video now because they're YouTube, right? They always want
That's what YouTube. I'm doing. I mean, I know that some of my listeners only have heard my voice and haven't seen our faces, but I do have a video. I think all but one of my guests have been on camera with me. One of them wanted to go for a walk, I think, and chose to use a still photo, which was totally fine. I understand that some people want to have a little bit of, more freedom like that. But Let's go to now. What is working from home looking like for you right now?
You know, when I heard about entrepreneurship once, they say, oh, it's great. You know, you can choose which 80 hours of the week you want to work. And I would say it's more like which 150 hours of the work. But luckily, I love what I would do. And I literally have 30-something clients now across industries. So I'm always working. If I'm awake, I'm working. You know, today I'm like, oh, wow, I only have 5 things I've got to do before the end of the day, Desperate. That's like, usually I'm juggling a lot more than that. This is like free
And then we
day,
threw this
you
in
know?
on top of it.
But usually it's funny because I don't know why the last few weekends it seems I have no podcast schedule, and I'll do anything on any day, but I guess I'm just scheduling them by people's Calendly. I guess most podcasters aren't doing them on the weekend because my 2 weekends in a row now, my Saturday and Sunday were almost completely free in terms of calls, which is great because then I can get all the other stuff done that isn't scheduled. Like my Monday, I have one day next week where I have like 3 podcasts and a pre-call, and I just sit there and do them. Though I just literally put it. That's the thing, like you said, I'm so comfortable at it now. It's like a phone call to me. I don't have to prep up where people are like, oh my God, I've got a podcast today. And I see that in my clients. They're like, tomorrow's my podcast. And I know they're like, but me, I'm literally like I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. Okay, what's on the agenda for tomorrow? 11 o'clock podcast. I better set the clock for 10:30. And I'll literally get up at like 10:30. I'll slip into my chair, you know. Okay, let's go. And it's just a conversation, right? Because I know my stuff and we're talking about what I do, so it's not...
You said that you are working if you're awake. Now, how many hours a week are you working, and how many hours are ideal for you? Do you love working?
Yeah, well, it's hard. Like, it's really hard to separate because it's not like the old days when I was doing. It doesn't even feel like work. It's not like I was doing when I was doing the telemarketing. Like now, I'm doing things where I thought of the strategies and I'm excited about them. And my client, some of my friends or my friends hire me, you know, because they see my work, so it's projects I like, or I mean, really cool projects, or you know. So and because the time is like, there's no. I should actually start a work diary where I know exactly how many hours I'm working a day. But pretty much, like from the moment I wake up, the first thing I do is look at my phone, you know, to see what time it is. And then I'm not even out of bed before I'm checking my everything. I'm checking all my messages, my Instagram, my WhatsApp, people message me across things. Just a quick 2-minute thing before I'm even in the bathroom, while I'm pouring my coffee. Make sure everything's okay. No, just nothing, no, because sometimes I'll be awake and sleeping at 11 still because I was up till 4 a.m. working in Africa. I'm across time zones, right? So I'll be like, okay, everything okay? I'm waking up to the morning, starting my coffee, already working, just making sure there's no fires or what I have to do. You know, so I'm already answering stuff. I'm literally already starting. And then at the end of the night, I'm still working at 3 a.m. I'm at my computer doing, you know, other stuff's going on. If my daughter's over, I'm talking to my daughter, but maybe I'm sending a press release where it's just a cut and paste now. I'm sending 100 or, you know, and my work is so varied. It doesn't feel like I'm doing the same thing all the time. Like 1 hour I might be writing something. The next hour I'm having a conference call, you know, on a completely different project. The next hour I'm talking to my client who's one of Africa's biggest broadcasters about 3 TV shows. The next time I'm talking to, you know, this guy that calls me the other day for old projects that was one of Canada's biggest broadcasters, like our MTV, that I used to watch on TV for years. And now in the middle of a random work call, he's telling me all this, you know, dirt basically about, you know, what it was like back in the day and those stations and all those people. And I'm like, oh, really? That person always seemed nice to me when I watched them on TV. Mm-hmm. And they, you know, they were out of the picture before I became a publicist, so I only know them as a, you know, oh no, they're but my work is like that, you know. So it's literally, it's not like if it was the old days when I was doing telemarketing, I would want to kill myself if I was working the number of hours I'm doing now.
It's a different kind of work.
You know, once you get to the point, yeah, when you're doing something when you got to the point where you actually love and you fell into it and it's a different thing. It is less separation. I'm actually passionate about all of them. So I'm happy to get to my desk in the morning.
And
it's
it
really
sounds like
weird.
you like the variety. Like you enjoy the switching because that keeps you moving. It's not like you're just in this drudgery, this long haul. Yeah,
for sure. And actually, somebody was asking me for tips on productivity and how to keep doing things. And I was saying, I don't know if that works for other people, but what really works for me is like literally I have a list. And you know what this is? When I get really happy, when I cross things off, crossed off, these are my other things. And so and I'll do it by the hour. Like, I'll literally set, like, okay, and obviously there's an emergency that someone has, but otherwise I'll be like, no, for this, I'm going to do 1 solid hour on this project. And I'm almost betting with myself, okay, what can I do in this? What can I get? Because I only had an hour. I only got an hour. Make it a good hour, you know? And then when that hour's done, you know what? Okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to get myself a cup of tea. I'm going to smoke a joint. This is Canada, you know? Whatever I want to do. And then I'm going to come back to it. I'm not going to come back to it. I'm going to come back to my desk and I'm going to do the next thing. And then I'm going to do an hour on a completely different project. And then by then, you know, it works really well too, because, you know, you do the first hour, then you send the results to the client, they can evaluate or whatever. While they're looking at that, I'm on to something totally different. Now I get, you know, blah, 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 and I do that for that. After an hour's over, go to something different. So it never feels boring. It's always, I'm never looking at the clock waiting for it to be done. I'm always more, oh shoot, I only have 5 more minutes to do this.
So it sounds like you do pretty well with plotting out your schedule and also keeping track of taking note of the time, keeping track of the time.
Yeah, I've found that's the best way to be like super successful, is to be too many clients, I wasn't like that all the time before. I used to sort of take things as they come. The top email would be the one that would get the attention, but then, you know, I have too many high profile projects and too many things, like too many moving parts to do it that way. So I just know at the beginning, like I know what has to absolutely be done. Things can't, you know, that have to be done. And then, you know, obviously those things so that I can't always stay with that hour or whatever. Some things are time sensitive, something. But for the time, when I'm just sitting there at my desk, I have like 5 hours to get stuff done. Instead of being overwhelmed that I have all this stuff to do. And also if you break it down that way, you'll get a little done of everything. Right? And so you'll make, the way I've found is, you know, and I mean, it depends what you can do, as long as you're effectively working. If you're really working for an hour, you'd be surprised how much you can accomplish, right? And so in that hour, I do a little bit there. So I get a little bit done on every project. So I've gotten a start on everything. I've got something to show every client, instead of getting all caught up into one thing and having 4 things overwhelming me still. Now instead, no, look, I've already set that up. I've set myself up for success here. I've started this. I've got that. Okay, tomorrow I'll do a little more, you know, so, and if any client comes in, I can report to them what I've done. They can be like, oh yeah, that sounds good. They can also, from their perspective, if it's on the wrong track, they have an opportunity then to tell me, so I'm not wasting their hours and their time. They can be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. You know what? Oh, that's great. I hadn't thought about that. Why don't you do a little more of that? Which they'll often say, and then instead of maybe my second hour would be different than I was thinking for them. So let them have some feedback, and so yeah, there's way, you know, like and it works out for everybody. I find it, and it obviously depends what kind of project you're doing, always, right? But that could even be the case if you had 3 different telemarketing projects or 3 different. I didn't get a
very clear picture. Can you just describe what your format looks like, as far as like, are you using like a printed calendar, like a daily sheet that you're filling out, or how does that work out?
So for my calendar, like this is my to-do list, and I do everything on paper also. I also like to have it on paper where I'm looking at it and I physically cross it off. But in terms of my appointment, that's more my to-do, like things I need to do, like jobs I need to finish, things I want to put, not so much like appointments. My appointments are like Google Calendar. Yeah, and then lately I've started using Calendly, but most of the time I'm using other people's Calendly. You know, for podcast guests. And all
but then
that,
it populates into your own Google Calendar, so you can see it all at a glance.
Yeah. And it looks crazy.
Sounds like it. Hey, can you talk a little bit about how things have changed over time? Like, even like just how you sit at your desk, or what you have as far as equipment, from back in your remote work, teleworking days for the call center to now. Like, what have you purchased for yourself versus what have you been given over the years?
Well, yeah, now I get all like now in terms of, in terms of physical equipment now, like I have the computer and I have the best, back in those days I had the crappy 4-year-old little tiny phone that was broken and looks horrible. Now I have a nice phone, you know, I have, when I need it, when a computer went a little, I like a desktop still. I have a laptop, but to be honest, I really prefer working on the desktop. I take my laptop when I want the freedom to go somewhere else. But if I'm just sitting in my office, I prefer the desktop for the ease of the cutting and pasting and copying. I don't know. I just find it, I still like my formal workstation.
The keyboard, it sounds like.
But yeah, you know what I mean? And then now, of course, I have all the, you know, the cameras now. I have all the, but a lot of subscriptions now. the way I work are more than the physical stuff. So a lot of things like the matchmaker and the podcast and all those things for my clients to connect my clients with things, and then the DocuSigns to sign documents, and I don't even know anymore the LinkedIn monthly in case I need to email somebody, and so there's a whole bunch of Microsoft whatever, and so all those kinds.
And
of
are you
expenses.
finding that it's just easier to do all of those on your computer versus like on your phone?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, I have the apps for a lot of things. I still have to be portable. When I do travel, I have to have everything, at hand. But I guess my day is probably both. I sit here and work on my phone with like in concert with my computer. So I use my phone for all the Instagram, and if I'm gonna make an image, I use that little Instagram, whatever it's called, to make an image, and then I use that image everywhere, and So I probably unconsciously I use them kind of in concert.
Yeah.
Ideally.
I gotcha. What about...
But I mean, I want to be super portable. So I mean, I'm going to leave this desktop at home. I'm going to take my laptop and my phone, and I'm going to go to a beach. And if I'm only working at 80% capacity, that's fine.
So how many
that
hours of work
sacrifice.
are you working right now in a week?
I would say it's probably like a good 17 a day. Okay, so say 17 a day minus like an hour and a half where I stop or two. Probably working at least 6. Probably working like at least easy 15 hours a day. Easy 15 hours a day.
Wow.
I know when you think
You've
about
got
it like
grown
that.
children.
But it's like. Yeah, my son's almost 18 now, and he'll come and tell me when it's time to sit down and watch The Simpsons or Family Guy or something, and he will tell me before we start, like, put my phone away. Like, he'll be like, no, like, away. He's like, I'm going to take your phone. And I'm like, well, can we just put it over there and charge it? So, and my daughter will remind me to eat. She's pregnant. She said to me the other day, if you don't start eating before 4 o'clock, because I'll wake up at like 11. I'll run right into a podcast. I'll be doing like today. Like I still haven't even have a real meal yet, and it's 8 o'clock. And my daughter says to me the other day, if you don't start eating before 4 o'clock, I'm gonna go on a hunger strike, and I'm pregnant.
No.
And I gotta start. I used to not pay attention, but. I know. I used to not pay attention, but now I realize that I'm older. Like, you actually have to regulate the times you eat and all this actually matters, and that you sleep correctly. These things actually matter. So I'm learning that and trying to apply them. And all my clients tell me this. They all say, stop, go to sleep, eat something.
No, I feel you. Because sometimes if there's something that's in front of you that's interesting, I've talked about this a few times before, but I feel like I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. Just based on some of the things I've talked about with my friends who do have ADHD, that ability to like hyper focus and then like the super distraction, the ability to be super distracted and like the desire for a lot of variety, and also talking so fast. Like all of these things are kind of like, oh, I probably do, have some of that underlying there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think probably, and also, I think my son and my husband are both brilliant, and my daughter too, brilliant. But they're also, my son is diagnosed autism spectrum, and my husband, we're 99% positive that positive. But he was, he just didn't diagnose it in those days. In those days, they called it hyperactive and whatever,
Gifted,
brilliant or something, right? But autism and ADHD, they're different, but there's also a bunch of crossover similarities too, right? And I think I'm probably spectrum and also ADHD.
Hard to know. Yeah.
Who knows? But whatever. Super successful people, are all. Bill Gates is autistic, and my client, Dr. Ira Price, who's like a surgeon, he's like doctor, he's like emergency room doctor, brilliant, whatever, educator, and a coroner, and he's ADHD, and he's always like, details, Ira, details. So, people can be hugely successful when you know what you're.
It can really drive people to hyper focus on something so that they become very knowledgeable and skilled in that area too. Are you a reader, Tracy?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any books you'd like to recommend, especially anything relating to working from home or this kind of lifestyle?
Gosh, not really anything in particular, and that's definitely not about working from home. That's a good question. I wonder.
Maybe productivity or, anything that you'd recommend?
Well, I don't read a lot of business books, but there is one business book. Actually, there's two I'll mention too. There's one by my client that I've mentioned a lot in terms of for business people, and I'm not mentioning it because she's my client, because I have a lot of clients who are authors, like a lot. But this one in particular, it's called the 30% Solution. Not productivity, sorry, the 30% Solution. But the whole idea of it is how, I can't remember the tagline, but it's how civility. She's a civility expert. How civility at work actually affects your bottom line in real ways, and they've done it like 30%. And the reason for that is in retention of customers and retention of employees. So that's a really interesting book.
Is it for managers?
Be nice. It's for, I guess it's mostly for managers, but also, like, she speaks to everybody, like, in terms of her, like, HR and stuff, too, like, interacting with people and how you can, all that. But it's just that's more, I guess, for... in the workspace. We're talking about working at home, but
it applies.
Another really good one is Dr. Howard Rankin. He's he's got a million books you can look up. He's a client of mine too. But check out his podcast. This is an interesting. I'll switch it to new media from book, because his podcast it puts into encapsulates what all his 25 books are about, basically, which is his podcast is called How Not to Think. Which is about, and he does all kinds of interviews with people, challenge and talking about, just breaking through old thinking or ineffective ways of thinking. And he's a neuroscientist, and he talks about, so he's a behavior guy as well. So, he's really interesting for all of us to sort of, challenge or check ourselves, and also to think about the greater world that we're in, and, how it's positioned, and
I might have to plug that in when I go for my next walk. How not to think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That's his podcast, How Not to Think, Dr. Howard Rankin. And he has a whole bunch of books on, like, all kinds of different topics, from gambling to, whatever, on the neuropsychology, I can't even speak that language, hard science about the brain.
I really enjoy reading stuff like that. I've a few books I've been reading. Malcolm Gladwell, he always talks about like research and really interesting stories, and he marries them together. And I'm like, I like
him a lot too. Yeah, exactly.
What about people who are just thinking about getting started from working from home? Do you have any advice for people who are like, I'm on the edge, I don't know if I want to do this, or I was doing it, I was forced to do it for a short time, now I have to make a decision if I want to continue? What kind of advice would you give people to consider?
Yeah, I think people, if you're how you feel, number one, because some people, like I said, that as a minority of people, and they're talking about them in COVID, and we're reading about them too, that are really excited to go back to the office because they're, for some reason, that I don't understand, missing. Because to me, that's like my worst nightmare. Somehow I had to go back to an office one day. No. In fact, to the point where, like, I have an entrepreneur friend who's as busy as me. She's like, has tons of customers. She had one of her 30-year customers, like forever, one of her customers, she said, needed her to go into the office and actually become their CFO for a year. She did not want to do it. Like, she was like, and people were like, well, you're crazy because they're going to give you a 6-figure job and a car and a big vacation. And I was the only person who was like, oh my God, I totally get it. Because at the end of the day, she still had, like, she had to stop what she's doing, serving all her clients, doing all that, the whole thing that we all do. Like, I don't know if you could give me how much money you'd have to, I'm sure there's some, I'm sure it'd be stupid of me to say no to everything, but that's how much money you would have to give me, as a yearly salary for me to actually, it would have to be like 10 times more than I'm making now. Honestly, for me to say goodbye to all my clients and everything I've built. Seriously, everything I've built to go into any office, even if I like what you're doing, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, working less than I work now. But all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Everything else has to be, so that's like, everything else in your life has to be put aside now. That 8 hours is that 8 hours there. Somewhere else, I can't, honestly, you have to probably make, I'm not joking. You probably have to make it like 5 times at least what I'm making now. Yeah, we were thinking about last year about maybe when we started thinking about hiring people, right? Then I started thinking I don't want them coming into my house and getting it. I'm not comfortable with that. So then we started thinking about co-working space. Right before the COVID hit, we started looking. Actually, I actually had called a couple co-working spaces and priced them, and I thought, but I doubt that I would. And then I might, like, if I had they were nice, and thought, oh, this is a nice space, and they weren't far from home, and I was thinking, oh, this is nice with the coffee, and my husband was saying he probably would prefer. He said, no, I think if we had that, I would go in 9 to 5. He said he felt
Really?
like he would work more effectively if he's back in that office space. That in his mind, he'll be like, okay, now it's 9 o'clock. I'm in my work time. He's not as good at me as like being in the workspace when you're in the workspace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he feels, but he's like a really effective worker. He feels like if that was it, that he'd be there and he'd be workaholic Dave over there. And also that, you know, but and I feel more like I would drop in. I would prefer to be the one that drops in and out of that, you know?
I would only want it for the conference room. I actually was literally like moments away from signing a contract to at least have like the monthly membership so I could have access to the conference room at the one that's a mile from
I like
my
that
house.
too. The drop in where you can
And-
use the desk if you want and have a meeting there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't sign the contract, thankfully, and I have interviewed a few people that have come from that workspace, and it's been a difficult thing because some of them, they didn't want to let people
I
out of
heard
those
that
contracts,
here this year a lot too.
for
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah. Okay, so what if this actually came up in like a woman's group that I'm in, like a supportive moms kind of group thing for people that work from home. And someone was like, what would it take? Like, how much would they have to pay you to make you do your job from an office again? And people are like, not enough money, no, nothing. But if you were to have that same exact job, but you had to do it from a 10-minute commute, some people said it'd be $10,000 a day per week in the office. Like if they needed to be there Monday through Wednesday, they would need to have 30 grand US dollars more in their salary just to do that 10-minute commute. And I was like, I can feel that.
For sure. And it's funny because people who have never done this, probably this is that, they're like, what are you talking about? That's just life. Like, how could you? But honestly, it's a whole different, you know, like to the point where, honestly, like, even just the working for yourself thing, and not even under a business, but just the opportunities when you take it, you're not just working for another company, you know, you're contracting and have different opportunities. Now I look at the jobs that, you know, 10 years ago I thought were good jobs, you know, and I'm not like rich, I'm not arrogant, but I can make more in a good year for sure than the best job that I used to look at thinking, oh, I wish I could do that, right? I don't mean like, no, I don't mean a millionaire, not like 100,000 every year, but I mean like, I'm talking about the good jobs, middle class jobs, 60,000, 70,000 year jobs. I can make that now, you know, and better. And I've done that in the last couple of years way better than that, right? But in the old days, that used to be like not long ago. That was like oh wow, that's a really, and I'm still saying it's a good salary. But now I look at that and I'm thinking, wow, that's capped though. It's almost sad to me because you you go to school for that, you do all that, and then you get there, you're at the top of your game in your business. Now you're making not your business, but your career, you know, you're making that salary, the top salary, and then there's no more. It doesn't matter how good you do, how much you impress your bosses, how much you bring to the company. That's the limit. So that's the difference between doing it, able to do it for yourself, when it's just, if I think of another strategy, I could have another whole income line. If I meet somebody else and something else happens that I can fit it in, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Next year could be bigger than the last, you know, and that's only in money. I mean, I've never really been hugely money motivated. It's only been the last few years I've started to think about this stuff. Before, I was mostly interested in working from home so that I could continue to do the activist work I was doing, which, you know, I did 20 years of an activist campaign that I started that helped free an innocent man from death row. So that stuff was Jimmy Dennis, if anyone wants to look that up. So that stuff took a lot of our time, and we specifically didn't want to have to go into offices and deal with all this crap, because I could stop at, you know, at lunch and do that, or stop at, you know, you know what I mean. We could, if somebody wanted to interview me about that stateside, I could stop and do a television or a radio interview or whatever. So the freedom to be able to work from home was always, you know, giant too, and kept me doing entry level job for a long time that I didn't mind doing, because I was able to stay working from home, stay at that telesales, right? Just the same job I did for years, and that's all I looked for, because it checked all my boxes. I could stay at home, I could work from home, I could raise my child, be home when my kid was there, you know, do my activist work.
Yeah, so it reminds me so much of that movie and the book. I actually haven't seen the movie, but the book just
and Jimmy Dennis, he was convicted in 1992 of a crime that happened in 91 that he absolutely factually had nothing to do with. We got involved in 1998. We visited him on death row in 2002. We ran the campaign for literally 19 years. He was finally released in 2017 after 25 years on death row. 19 years that we've been involved. We still talk almost every day. And he's a musician now. So if you Google his name now, you see some amazing R&B music he's making and getting some attention from the entertainment industry. So that's a pretty crazy story. Yeah, we're like,
good.
wow. We talk now, we're like,
Goodness.
I still can't believe, like I say to him, you call me from a cell and not a cell. 4 years later. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good story.
Oh,
that's actually how I
wow.
learned to write a press release, never thinking I would segue that into a career. And then I learned to write a press release at 28 for Jimmy. We got all kinds of major media attention, got on TV, got his attention out there. And it wasn't until 11 years after that, when I was 41, that I thought, wait a minute, I could probably take those skills and build a career on that. Not the death row stuff, but the messaging and media and learning how to deal with media and all that. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I was wondering how those connected. I had a feeling they did.
That's how that happened. So it's
wow.
a crazy story.
That is such an amazing story. Wow. Well, how should we wrap this up? Do you have any final words you'd like to share with this audience working from home?
Well, yeah, just to encourage people to do it. Just actually do it. Like, I always like I won't quote Nike, just do it, but I like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Don't dream it, be it. So honestly, if you think you can, especially now, there's a million more opportunities since a lot of employers have opened up their eyes to working from home. So if you are disciplined enough, you really got to be disciplined to do it though. You have to understand that's work time, be passionate about what you do and use your time. If you're just thinking, oh, it'll be an easy way to work and I won't have the boss breathing down your neck, it's probably not for you. Because if you're the kind of person that won't do something, if the boss isn't breathing down your neck, then you're not really giving yourself any advantage to working from home. You won't shine. You want to make sure that you're going to shine, right? Because it's still about career. It's still about, if you're just trying to make a few bucks, there's all kinds of opportunities to do that. There's all kinds of, side hustles and everything, especially these days. And, from Upwork and freelance and whatever you work, all those things to I find LinkedIn hugely effective. Whatever your skills are, reach out to people on LinkedIn. Effectively, not with a canned message, but just talk about what you do and why you can help them and, build up. You only need one person to believe in you. Like if you're corporate now, but you want to work from home, you need to only get one or two people to believe in you enough to give you one of the small contract. And then you're doing it. It could be 2 weeks doing it. Now look at you. You're professional. You're doing it. Just do it a little bit more and then, keep on going.
So if you were to start a podcast, what is the theme going to be?
It's funnily enough, my husband and I were just talking about it last night. And we think we're going to call it Disruptor Radio. Because we think that would cover, I want to cover, the business and, the health people, it wants to be open up to everything. So anybody doing neat things, everybody doing cool and unique things that are interesting enough to be interviewed, But it also fits for music. It also fits for the music and entertainment side too. Disruptor, action. It's kind of fun.
Would it give you a place to be able to interview some of the people that you're working with?
Absolutely, yeah. Always, yeah. I was saying, I think my husband will probably be doing, I told him I want him to do the interviewing, so it's not just, your publicist interviewing you. I want it to be a little fresh.
Oh, right,
But so he'll probably do the interviewing of all my clients, and then because he doesn't work on them on a one-on-one basis, it'll be more fresh conversation.
Yes.
Than me asking things I already know the answer to, and then, but then
idea.
also we plan to expand way beyond that and just because we have a huge network of not just our clients, but interesting people that we know and meet more interesting, fun people all the time doing really neat things. And, yeah. So people have been bugging me to have a podcast for a long time, so I really should do it.
I love it. Hey, how can people find you? You have a few different things you've got up in the air. So what's the best way to people who might want to reach out to you to learn more about
Yeah, absolutely. And I
you?
do work across borders and across industries. So anywhere where there's English-speaking media, I'm happy to help. So yeah, happy to do a free consult if anyone wants to hear more about that. And also I help with cover letters. If you're looking to get a job, I can also help you with that. Write a kick-ass cover letter to, get you in. Because I've realized some people aren't, skilled with that and they struggle with that kind of thing too. So anyway, Tracy Lamourie PR Media is on Instagram. LamouriePR@gmail.com, or you can email me. So Tracy LamouriePR@gmail.com is my email. Tracy Lamourie PR Media on Instagram. LamourieMedia.com on the web.
And it's TRACY
LAMOURIE.
Yes, just for those who can't see your name right now.
And maybe you'll put it under the show notes there.
Well, yes, it will be all over on YouTube and everywhere. So, Well, thank you so much, Tracy. I think we need to wrap it up. It's been so fun having you. I appreciate your time today, and I hope that we can connect again soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it too.
All right. Well, this has been April Malone with Tracy Lamourie, and we'll see you next time. Take care.